It was just hilarious, and we're pissing ourselves laughing because we're like, there is a random audience member standing on stage with us right now, just holding a rock like confidently. Like the confidence on this person was just astounding. My name's Andre Augustus, and I'm a hand-to-hand bass or ensemble acrobat. I moonlight as a comedian, but I'm mostly just a big dork.
What's the most embarrassing thing that happened to you on stage?
Early in my career, me and Annalise, my head flyer, were doing like a corporate gig. At that time, we were just trying to make money, so anything that came our way, I was like, yep, we'll do it. In the email, there was something that said ant-like movement. I was like, oh, it's a typo. They probably just mean art-like movement, and it's someone who doesn't really know circus trying to like articulate something contemporary. It gets closer to the gig, I look back over the email and I'm like, oh, they actually meant ant-like movement. And I go to Annalise, I'm like, I think I signed us up for something weird. And it turns out it was like the opening launch party for a gin distillery, and the gin was distilled with Nordic ants. And the gig was in like a museum in the insect curated section, and they wanted Annalise and I to dress like ants and installate like a roving animation. And to make matters worse, it was like it wasn't a comedic thing. It was like a regal suit and tie event, and we were in like body skin morph suits with like the equivalent of styrofoam antennae, like a primary school passion project. We're doing the gig, we get like halfway through. I go to lay down to do this skill, which is just like the kind of Icarian handstand on feet. I'm laying on my back. She's doing a handstand on my feet. As I go to lay down, I have the thought like enters my mind. I'm like, that's an awfully cold breeze on my buttocks. And I dismiss it because I'm like, it's a morph suit, it's kind of thin, whatever. Then we get up and walk away, and then a woman comes over to Annalise because she was too embarrassed to come up to me, and she was like, I hate to inform you, but your partner's bum is showing. And I was like, all the atheism is leaving my body because I'm like praying for a pinhole situation, something small. And I do like that subtle, I like put my hand back subtly just to check, and it's bad. It's like arseless chaps. Like the whole thing is just like, and I'm like Jess at a dance support. So it's like, it's just not the bum you want to see in that setting. It's a big hairy brown thing. And it's like, I was mortified. Annalise, like in just a stroke of what she thought was genius, was like, oh, it's fine. Like you have some black underwear upstairs. We'll go upstairs and get your underwear and put it on. And I was like, I don't think you understand. Like we're fucking leaving. Like I'm never coming back here. Like this is crazy. This is crazy. I was so embarrassed. And it was pretty unprofessional now that I look back at it, but we didn't even say bye to like the people who booked us or anything. We just left. I thought it was all over, but then I get an email. The subject heading is like photos from the gig. And I was like, my heart drops. I was like, there was a photographer there. Luckily, it was all fine. No photos with my ass out. That was one of the most embarrassing performative things.
How did you end up being a hand-to-hand bass?
I don't actually think I decided. I think like a lot of people, I fell into it organically by following my nose of what I was interested in that ended up there. And I saw some people doing hand-to-hand and I was like, oh, that's cool. I just fell into it and then I loved it. Yeah.
How is your experience with stand-up comedy?
Awesome. Oh, I've loved it. I've only been doing it for a year now. And I started doing it because I was missing that feeling of sucking at something on stage. I've been doing acrobatics for a minute now and just wanting to go on stage and have my butthole tight again, you know? Like I was doing a gig in China for 3 months. It was a bit isolating because of the language barrier and stuff like that. I just started writing some jokes and then I had a transit through Singapore afterwards. I called up the club and I didn't lie to them, but I didn't say it was my first time. I kind of pretended like I do this. I was like, hey, do you have any slots? I'm like in town. And they were like, yeah, cool, come up. And I did it and I sucked, you know, but then I did again. And then I remember the first gig I did that people were laughing kind of from beginning to end, only like 5 minutes. But that feeling was like, I was like, oh, I get this. I get why it's so addictive. Better than a feeling of doing acrobatics. It's like the best cocaine you've ever had. Just them belly laughing at just your words. I don't know, maybe it scratches the itch of the narcissism in me, I don't know. But I liked it. And I learned something new every time I do it. And I think even if you're not into comedy, I think everyone has something to learn from doing an open mic at least once. I think there's like this amazing level of resilience when you think the worst thing that could ever happen to you is you go on stage and no one laughs at your jokes. And then you go on stage, no one laughs at your jokes, and then nothing happens. That's the, then you go on, you never see those people again, and life keeps existing. And then you go, oh, I can do anything. And you become very, very resilient. The whole I could talk about it. I could talk about comedy for longer than I could talk about circus. It's really a deep passion of mine at the moment. But what I'm learning is how comedy is not universal in the same way circus is. And it's kind of the beautiful thing about using your body is that it's universal. You do a backflip in any country in the world and people are in awe and they're impressed because everyone has a body, and there's lots of reasons for that. But jokes are not universal. And so the difference between a good comedian and a great comedian is one who will know their material and they'll change it depending where they are and what room they're in. Where when I do acrobatics, we don't change the show if we're in a different country. It's that element that makes comedy always constantly new and fresh, because it is. It's like always an improvisation, even if your set is completely rehearsed.
How do you tell someone you're a circus artist without sounding like you're bragging?
It's hard, isn't it? I'm not sure if I've perfected it, but here's what I'll do is I'll remove, unfortunately because of the connotations to circus, I'll remove the word circus from when I explain it. And usually if I'm trying to be as neutral as possible, I'll just say I'm a performer. And then if they have follow-up questions, I'll be like, I'm an acrobat. And then if they have more follow-up questions, I'll be like, I work for a Montreal-based company. I don't dare say Cirque du Soleil or, because even by virtue of saying Cirque du Soleil, it's bragging. It doesn't matter what tone and what context. It just sounds like you're name dropping. So you can't even mention your like work like that. The answer is no, I haven't fully worked it out yet. There's some cities in the world, Berlin is one of them, that I love so much because it's so progressive and there's like any niche thing you're into, Berlin has it there and it has a plethora of it. And because of that, no one's special, and I love that. I can just go there as like a Malaysian Australian tattooed acrobat who does comedy, who moonlights doing comedy, and they're like, yeah, cool. Like, you know what I mean? There's no follow-up questions. They're like, yeah, that's nice. And I love that. I love that because that's ordinary, because they have so many fringe things going on there. Australia, not so much. Australia's a bit more of an island. People forget because it's big, but it's like, it's still got this isolated island mentality.
How would you define the role of a bass inside an ensemble?
It's in the name. It's being a rock for everyone. And I have a theory that basses, people who get like really good in like a professional sense of being a bass, have similar personality types. It's less actually about their physical ability of being a bass, but it's they're higher at these kind of personality traits on the spectrum to become a professional bass, which is like kind of patience, reliable, clear communicators. They're not there to be the limelight of the whole thing. They're there to like support it. So many great basses I work with are great not because of their physical ability, but because they're so like easy to talk to and negotiate with. Doesn't matter how talented you are, if you can only communicate this much, you're only going to be able to achieve this much with that bass. Versus someone who's less experienced, but you can negotiate anything, you're going to go much further with that person. It seems self-explanatory, but it's not always. That's a great word you use, consistent. If you had to just say a couple of words like patient, consistent, reliable. My therapist talks to me about, she likes to joke with me all the time that I'm not just a bass at my work. She says, you're a bass in every aspect of your life. And I think good basses are, because they have those personality traits. They're there for others. They're there to help support everyone who's around them. They're not always generous, but to the people they consider close to them, they're very generous with their time and their energy.
What drives you the most on stage?
I would say when I started, it was like most people, it was like selfish reasons. But in more recent years, as I get older, seeing the impact, also COVID really made me reflect on it a lot. And the impact people have watching a show, I think is what drives me more, because it was so much about me and how I felt. And then now, after comments after the show, I realized that it's something bigger than myself. If someone's inspired, even in a small way, to have more fun or play or physical connection with the people around them, which a lot of the shows I perform in tend to kind of display these qualities, that people come out going like, oh yeah, you guys just look like you're having fun. And it's like, well, it's because we are. If there's an audience of 1,000 people and even one person was inspired to implement more play into their day-to-day, I think that's so awesome.
What's the most chaotic thing that ever happened during a show?
We have a show called Backbone, and there's a scene where the flyer does the whole act where everyone's porting her through all these positions, and she's locked into an audience member, like eyes, never takes her eyes off them. And there's a spotlight on the audience member, and the audience member is holding a rock that they're given at the start of the show, and so is the flyer. So there's kind of this moment where they're like connecting throughout the whole act. And it all the time runs smoothly, except for this one time, for whatever reason, the person thought they needed to get up on stage because the light was just on them and they were holding a rock. So then during the act, they just like stood up and just started like walking up, and they like got on stage holding the rock. And we were all so, because it's this really emotionally heavy act that has violin in the background and it's got a lot of gravity to it. So we were struggling to find the right moments to kind of go over to this audience member and be like, hey, you can leave. Like you, and Annalise is struggling because usually she's set to look in this one position, but she's now having to like turn to like, she usually stares stage right. She has to look stage left now and like going through these positions. And it was just hilarious. And we're pissing ourselves laughing because we're like, there is a random audience member standing on stage with us right now, just holding a rock like confidently. Like the confidence on this person was just, yeah, astounding. So that was a funny fail moment to be a part of.
What's your most overrated trick versus underrated trick?
Yeah, Annalise and I used to perform like a front salt recatch, which, for those who don't know, it's like, standing toes on. And then what's very common is to do like a back salto or like a tendu, like a layout from that position. It just makes a lot of sense because the feet rotate in a way where you can see them and catch them clearly. And front salt is a blind catch because the way the feet come in the fly, you don't really see it, and the feet come in quickly. So it's much more technical of a skill. But to an untrained eye, the difference between a front salt and a back salt is nothing. It's 5 times harder than a back salt, but people would never notice the difference. But we just kind of liked it anyway because it was challenging. And then an overrated trick might be a skill we used to perform ages ago. From my understanding when we made it, I think we kind of thought we were pioneering this skill, even though it was probably done before, but social media wasn't as big, so you couldn't see what other people are doing. But I see it done quite a lot now, which is just a hand on a 3 high, I'm on the middle, and then I jump out, and then the top just falls and the porter catches them in that position where they're like head close to the ground. And I think that people love that skill because the flyer is falling head first and they get stopped just before. But technically it's actually easy. Well, it's not easy, but it's like, if it's not technically hard if you're proficient at what you do.
What's the difference between doing circus in Australia versus in Montreal?
God, I'm gonna insult some people, I think. I'll try not to be too insulting. It's actually current on my mind because I've been here and used to live here in Montreal, but just come here again very recently. Something I'm noticing, for whatever reason here in Montreal, there seems to be a bit more emphasis on status in like a hierarchy of people seem to be more interested in who you work for or how good you are at the thing. Not in a super negative way, but just in a, I think, more influenced by like social media and status and those kind of things in a way that I'm sure exists in many other places as well. But I don't notice it as much in Australia. And maybe that's my own view because I know many more people in Australia. So it might be very particular to my experience and not everyone's. But that's something I've noticed subtly.
Why do you think people hire you?
Sometimes I think it's not because I think I'm not talented, but sometimes I think I'm a personality hire a lot of the time. Especially outside of Australia, they value Australians because of the energy and vibe they'll bring to a production. And they're just always making the work light and fun when, it can inevitably get heavy and hard. So I think vibes. I think I'm hired for vibe, paired with being good at doing what I do. I think having dealt with casting a little bit, someone described this analogy, which I'll butcher now, which is you want this kind of 3 pillars or a trifecta or a triangle, however you want to think about it. But you're either very talented, really good at what you do, a pleasure to work with, great vibe, energy, or very punctual, organized, and reliable. You obviously want to be all 3, but it's rare that someone's all 3 at all times. So usually you're looking for 2. And if I had to be brutally honest, my 2 would be good at the work and vibes and weaker on the organizational, punctual side of things.
What are you looking for in a hand-to-hand partner?
It sounds cliche, but strong. Someone who's strong. And I don't mean that just in the physical sense. Like you need a lot of resilience. And like we spoke about before, also someone who's easy to negotiate with. Exactly the thing I said before. I would rather someone who's less physically able and talented, who you can communicate with because you're going to go further. If they're this talented, you can only communicate this much. You're not going to go far. So easy to speak and negotiate with, and strong and resilient.
And what are you looking for in a love partner?
Exactly the same thing. Exactly the same thing. Yeah.
What's your favorite quote?
So many. We were making a show called 10,000 Hours recently with Gravity and Other Myths, and each day we went in, we had a whiteboard and we would write a new quote. Well, mostly I would do it. I would write a new quote on it every day. One of the first ones that comes to mind when you say that is, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is now. I think it's an awesome quote. It tells you, if you're ever ruminating on anything like I could've, woulda, shoulda, it's like, yeah, but action right now. It's action first. So that's a good one. And then a third one I really like, not circus related, which is everything is about sex except for sex, which is about power. Again, not sure if it's completely true, but it's got a nice ring to it.
What can you say during circus training that you can also say in bed?
Everything. I very commonly say this thing, which is that communicating in an ensemble is very similar to like being in a polyamorous relationship. Like the language is very similar because you're constantly negotiating your feelings, right? You'll come down from a skill and the language is very much like, how did that feel? What do you need? Can I do anything for you? And it's very much like you're navigating kind of a polyamorous relationship where there's a constant check-in with each other. Do we need a third? Like, is it not working just the 2 of us? I mean, obviously it's the good communication you should have in any kind of relationship, I think, but very commonly you find it a necessity in polyamorous relationships when you're negotiating multiple relationships at the same time.
What's your favorite show that you've ever performed in?
It might be a show called The Pulse that we did with Gravity and Other Myths. It wasn't a show that I immediately loved doing. It was great because there's so many of us in it, but we do work where it's much smaller and you feel like you're a bigger part of the show. But it was the first show I did that over time I realized that I was contributing to something that was much larger than myself. And we performed with this like 30-piece all-female choir, and we get to activate a new choir in each country we perform it in. It kind of gets the fingerprint of each new country that you go to, and it changes a lot, and it's constantly growing. It's this big amorphous thing that it feels so powerful because also choir singing is it's almost religious. Emotionally, it takes you somewhere every time you perform it.
What's the best thing on your schedule this week?
This weekend, I have a good friend who lives just out of Quebec City, and her and her partner have built these kind of eco cabins that are off the grid, and me and a couple of friends are going to go up there, stay the night, drink wine and play board games, which is like my favorite way to spend a weekend.